a pas de micro en salle. Il n'y a que dalle. Que dalle. 0. 0, 0. Si?
So, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for the delay. We had the press conference that was ongoing, and that's why Rafael is not with us right now from Prometheus Life Technologies, because we had the press conference and they're asking a lot of questions. So I'm really sorry about the delay. But with Philippe, we're gonna make it sure that we won't take the 30 minutes that was assigned to the event. But my name is Nicolas Peter. I'm the current president of ISU, the International Space University, and we are really, really happy to be here today with you to have this event, a specific event dedicated to health in space. So this is a domain that is very important for the society in general, but also a position or the territory here can play a big role. And I see many familiar faces in the audience, and I'm really glad about that. What ISU is. ISU is the sole university dedicated to space since 1987. So you would say 87, that's young. Yes, it's young, but in the space sector, it's the oldest and the only one dedicated to space. And we're happy to be located here in Ilkirch, in Strasbourg Eurométropole, because we have been here since more than 25 years, and we have created, and Philippe will talk about that, with the local host, a unique campus, where here we have our 2 master program. We also have the headquarters of the institution. We also have offices in the US, for instance, but the headquarters is here. And we also do education, but we also do entrepreneurship. Because it was a thread through our education, entrepreneurship is something important. And you know, there's always this perennial question, are entrepreneurs born or trained? And here at ISU, we say they are revealed. And the incubator that we are hosting is one of the elements that help that, because sometimes when you're an entrepreneur, you have an idea, you want to take a risk, but every risk is difficult. But here we help the people to make sure to de-risk and to make sure that they succeed in creating companies and entities. So that's really important. And we have just that came Coralie. Coralie is in charge of the incubator, and that she's our great expert, and she is the helping with the interface with the companies, and she's also the mastermind behind this event. So Coralie is there. So also Eurométropole is very key players into that. And you will say, why space? Why in Strasbourg? Well, space first touches everyone. It touches everyone in our daily lives, that you know it or not. So who knew where ISU was before coming? Raise the hand. So few of you didn't know where it was, right? So what did you do? You went on Google Maps, okay? Most of you may use Google Maps, or some of you may use a GPS system in your car to come here. So you use space to come here, as an example. And you can see that space is everywhere. It's the invisible backbone of our society. And we use it that we know it or not. And most of the time we use it and we don't know about it because it works. It works, it provides benefits on Earth. And we'll see today with also benefits on the health sector on Earth, but also in space. So we are happy to have people that will be here today from Prometheus, Space Pharma, BioValley, Grant Invest, and also Medes with us online, and that will be an important element. And again, you know, we will have the opportunity to discuss. There is at the end a small get-together moment as well to meet the fellow entrepreneurs, people from here, the local region, local institution, fellow ISU faculty, fellow ISU future graduates, future past graduates. So you will have a lot of opportunity to network. But now I want really to give the word to Philippe Portelli from Eurométropole. A few words, because without the Eurométropole, this will not be possible today.
Thank you. Won't be possible without you. Thank you. Just a few words to welcome you in the Eurométropole of Strasbourg. Maybe you don't know this is a metropolis with a European status. It is in the word Eurométropole because we have a special status in the European area because it is in Strasbourg that the laws are voted for the whole European Parliament. Strasbourg is a local authority of 33 cities, which in Strasbourg is a big one. It represents 500,000 inhabitants and has lots of responsibilities in its policy as economic, social, cultural, and development and planning. Eurometropole Strasbourg is strongly supporting the ISU since a lot of years now, nearly 35, I guess. Nearly 35, because we consider, as Nicolas said, that the space sector is very important in all the fields that a territory like Metropolis has to manage with. For example, for the moment, as you may know, health, that's why you are here, but climate change, sovereignty, sustainability, and so on. We have created, both with ISU, the incubator of space sciences here in Strasbourg, just to go on with welcoming companies, searchers, lecturers, and a lot of persons involved in the development of space sciences in our territory for the sharing with everyone. We have welcoming we are welcoming, for the moment, four startups in the incubator and more to come. As you may know, the event today is co-organized by the Space Pharma and Prometheus, which are two startups incubated in the incubator, but two others like EvoSmart or Grape Oak are also in the incubators. We began this incubator nearly 4 years ago now, and we had the opportunity to welcome 4 other companies in this incubator, and one is famous now. Its name is Lean Space. It was our best fundraising in the Metropolis in the last 2 years, and we have to say this is due to the support of the ISU team and the whole area of the Innovation Park, where you can find a lot of research team and large companies about biotechnologies and health. So Strasbourg is also a rich innovation ecosystem, and in which we can find a lot of organisms like BioValley France, which is supporting the companies around us. So welcome to this new event. We are very proud that health and space can be crossed and can support both sides in our territory, and hope you will have a great time and can benefit from a lot of things during this event. So welcome and have a great moment. Thank you.
Thank you all again for coming. It's a pleasure to have you here. As Philippe and Nicolas said, this event was made especially to introduce Space Pharma and Prometheus, which are two startups on like all the health area, and so that's why we thought it was a very interesting. As at ISU, we have a couple of experts on that subject that you will hear soon. So we will start almost right on time with our program. So you can see here a little bit what you will hear, and all the topics we will have this afternoon for this conference. So we will start with Space Pharma and a presentation of the company, and then Prometheus, then the roundtable. And then a little break. Everything is waiting for you outside. And then the person from the Grantis region will explain you how important that domain is here. And yeah, then we will let you the floor a little bit if you have some questions or discussions about this subject, and then we can all talk together around some drinks. So now I will let the floor to Space Pharma. I'm going to pop up their presentation, and I will let Shalva coming to talk about the company. And we will also have the CEO, Paul Camoun, online. And the same, I'm going to make all of this happen right now. Thank you.
So, good afternoon. I'm Shalva. I'm a volunteer intern in Space Pharma. I'm a student in Master of Pharmaceutical Biotechnology in ESBS et Faculté de Pharmacie de Strasbourg. So I will try to do my best to present as well as possible Space Pharma between two exams. So I will start with two videos to introduce Space Pharma, and then I will talk about Space Pharma, and I will finish with two other videos. So the first one is a little introduction of a general presentation of Space Pharma activities.
Sometimes in training, I feel like I've given it all, that it's as far as I can get. But then, on the big stage, with all the lights, all eyes on me, suddenly I feel like a second push, like I could fly. I'm unleashed. And it all comes down to one simple thing, your environment. If you change the environment of your experience, you might be able to change its outcome. It could actually be a universal thing. What if every challenge, every research was simply done in a different, limitless environment, say in space? Space has indeed already brought revolutions in telecommunications, transport, astronomy, observation of the Earth. What about health? Could, for example, pharmaceutical, medical, biotechnological experience done in space and monitored from Earth bring unparalleled, incredible results? That's what Space Pharma does. It's a game changer.
Space Pharma is pioneering the development and exploitation of high-performance remote-controlled miniaturized laboratories flying in microgravity on satellites and space stations. For the pharmaceutical industry, Space Pharma is fostering accelerated new medical drug discovery and preclinical trial and new vaccines through improved space-grown crystals of proteins. In cosmetics, Space Pharma supports the discovery of new anti-aging compounds using skin-on-chip in microgravity for accelerated skin aging process. It also uses hair follicle tissue as a model for impaired hair growth and accelerated testing of hair care agents and medications. For the food industry, it increases production of lipid antioxidants from microalgae in microgravity for nutritional food and dietary supplements. It provides the biotechnology industry with an advanced laboratory for stem cell proliferation, while keeping full differentiation capability for neurons extension and for discovering new gene expression profiles, which have no counterpart on Earth. It helps develop 3D tissue regeneration and stem cell therapy for the medical domain. Even more, Space Pharma develops the first ever factory in space for advanced and unique drug and cell production in collaboration with health institutes and industries.
Health innovations will never be the same. So don't just give your projects a boost. Give them wings.
Space Pharma, working in space for health on Earth.
So the second one is about how those mission is unfold.
Separation confirmed. And recognition. Dragon, separation confirmed. Well, thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. So thank you. Firstly, I will explain why conduct research in space. So there are two important domains. So we have chemistry and medicine. So the chemistry in microgravity, we can obtain a higher purity and homogeneity of crystal. We can relate that they are more numerous, purer, bigger in space, and for the medicine, we can accelerate in model of aging and disease. So here are some parameters that we can explored in microgravity. So we have altered cardiovascular function, bone and muscle loss, altered immune function, and also the changes in the structure and function of brain and eyes, and microbiome and bacterial resistance. So this is very important to evaluate those parameters in the space, because the environment is different because of the microgravity. So why? So why research in space and under microgravity conditions? So the gravity affects every chemical and biological process. So we have natural convection, sedimentation, shear forces, and gravity-induced effects are the only factors that cannot be eliminated in experiments on Earth. And research in microgravity is applicable for a better understanding mechanism of processes and obtaining results of products available on Earth. And we gain knowledge for future space traveling. So there are several microgravity research fields. So, for example, we have protein crystallization, self-assembly of polymer proteins, gene expression, stem cell research, bone muscle health, tissue regeneration, aging process, DNA damage and regulation, bacterial virulence, and accelerated models for drug discovery. So, for example, here we have the crystallization obtained in the space and on the ground. We calculate that the crystals are bigger and purer in the space, and then we can optimize the drugs and or create drugs. So it's important for drug discovery, and we can also evaluate the changes between bacteria and the bacteria resistance, for example, with the DIDO3 mission. So what are the advantages of space pharma? What are their characteristics? So we have a modular small-scale laboratory, so a mini lab, and we can control it on the Earth. So we can have a wide of application, and we have also a multidisciplinary team because we have a lot of domain. So we have engineers, biologists, and we can prevent track record of space mission over multiple platforms. So we already been in, we already launched our mini lab in parabolic flights, satellites, ISS, and we hope in the space radar it's an automated shuttle space, so to produce some new drugs. So if you are a researcher, you can build your research procedure, and then Space Pharma customized lab for researchers' need, and then Space Pharma places lab in microgravity platform, and you can control your experiments or microgravity experiments to get results on the Earth. So here are the platforms. So our headquarters is in Switzerland and the control station. So we communicate with our satellites with Switzerland. So, but whenever you are, you can communicate with the mini labs by your smartphone with an application. And here we have some results of crystallization. So we are drug crystallized on ground and drug crystallized in space. So we have the same scale, but we can relate that the crystals are bigger and purer. So we can improve some drugs. So, for example, for the pharmaceutics, we can have an improvement for the polyforms of crystals. So then we have an improvement of the drugs that are also are in the market. And for example, with the microbiology, we can evaluate the bacteria resistance. So it's an advantage for the antibiotic, and we can also evaluate the communication between the bacteria and then the biofilm. So it's important to the health on the Earth. So Space Pharma promises that space research are cheaper, better, and faster than terrestrial research, because we don't need expensive real estate, no need for expensive laboratories, because the mini lab is offered by Space Pharma, and we have a free electricity, solar power, green, sustainable energy, and that allows for hazardous material without risk to personnel. So here we have some domains that Space Pharma working on. So we have the agriculture, for example. We have the Aleph Farms with the mission on 22. So Aleph Farms is developed a protocol to have in vitro meat. So this is an advantage for Earth, for them to evaluate the protocol in microgravity, because we don't bring a cow in the moon. So it's an advantage to evaluate the microgravity impact on their protocol. So here we have the picture of the astronaut in the ISS. So we don't need any astronaut except for to connect the mini lab to ISS. And it's important to precise that the mini lab is the dimension are 30 for the length and 10 by 10 for 10 by 10 for dimension. So here we are, the 10 last launch experience. So we refined the Aleph Farms in 22, and 20 we also have an experience on antibiotic resistance that I told before, and the future mission in January and May is about monoclonal antibodies. So Space Pharma were the first for many things, and we have the investigation to make, for a mechanism of action by which bacteria become antibiotic resistant, for the development of new antibiotics. We have also to arrive to demonstrate fast protein crystallization in parabolic flight, to manufacture in orbit of improved and stable monoclonal antibodies crystals. So thanks for your attention. I will make the two next video are about the mission on the study of DNA damage and the assembly of a bioreactor in laboratories.
On Earth now, after traveling hundreds of miles up and then hundreds of thousands of miles more orbiting the Earth. It was a test that flew on board the first all-private astronaut mission to the International Space Station, studying stress and DNA damage caused by space travel. Fox 13's Haley Himes joins us now in our newsroom with what we have discovered so far. This is so interesting. If only these tests would talk, but I guess they kind of are, right?
Yeah, they certainly could tell a story for sure, Mark. Their first priority, though, was getting it back in one piece, which they did. The second is now carefully harvesting and analyzing the cells. Spaceflight is hard on the human body. We know that. Researchers hope their results will not only protect those traveling to space from chronic stress-related disorders like cancer, but also people here on Earth.
3, 2, 1.
The April 8th Axiom Mission 1 launched 4 crew members to the ISS, along with one small but powerful experiment.
This is the actual chip that was in space.
Researchers at Moffitt Cancer Center are looking to space to solve a stressful problem.
The only way we can do that is to send these cells up to the ISS.
During spaceflight, astronauts are exposed to stresses like microgravity, ionizing radiation, and physical stress. That can lead to DNA damage and increase risk for diseases like cancer. Researchers want to know if silencing or deleting a particular gene, known as beta-arrestin 1, can protect against chronic stress-induced DNA damage. And if so, can the process be mimicked with a drug?
If that differential gene expression can be exploited for human health, especially cancer therapies.
They tested the theory in space, in a lab the size of a shoebox.
The astronauts actually didn't have to do anything except for plug it in.
And now,
Welcome back to planet Earth.
we'll repeat the same tests in Tampa, comparing the cell's DNA damage response.
So this is where our samples are housed in minus 80 degrees Celsius.
The next challenge is isolating the RNA from the samples.
We just hold it at an angle.
Before they do that, they're getting plenty of practice.
And harvest the sample very carefully.
While the goal is to develop preventative measures to combat the harsh environment up there,
with these longer term flights that are scheduled, we have no real idea of knowing what that's going to do to our biology.
These results could also lead to treatment for stressors down here.
UV rays and things like this, things that we know can cause DNA damage.
To be able to impact, patients' lives in that way is the reward that we hope to get.
This experiment lifted off thanks to funding from Space Florida and Space Pharma, which provided their unique lab on a chip. Aside from weather, which delayed the arrival on Earth by nearly a week, everything went smoothly, and they expect to share their full results in just a few weeks.
We're so looking forward to it. It's really amazing to see how far we've come in space travel. Not just, I know the private travel's gotten a lot of the attention, but this is really where it's starting to pay off.
Yeah, it is a brand new era for sure.
Very exciting. Haley Hines in our newsroom. Haley, thanks.
Je voudrais pas.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7.
There's a popular early 19th century English phrase that goes, "What goes up must come down." It's just
So thank you very much for Space Pharma for their presentation. It was very interesting. And if you have any questions, Paul will be there at the round table right after. I mean, it will be online, but he will be able to answer to all your questions. And I think it will be very interesting to hear the CEO talking with the other experts on that topic. So thank you, Shalva, again. And after we will let Prometheus Life Technology and Raphael Rotgen present his company and his projects. I'm gonna put the slides in a second, and when you're ready, you can come join me here.
All right, welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I am alumnus of this institution as well, so I've spent a lot of the time in the seats where you're sitting as well. It's nice to be on the other side for a change. So you've already heard from our friends at Space Pharma. We know them very well. I've known Yossi, the founder, for many years. They're potential collaboration partners for us. And certainly the sort of the lab in the shoebox, as you've heard about, is a very interesting piece of equipment. So Prometheus Life Technology is by contrast, so we're not really a hardware company or anything like this. We are people who are, I would describe it as an application of space biotech, right? So we use other people's hardware to do a biotechnological process that we believe we are the world's most foremost experts in. And I will describe this process today. As you can see on screen, it's all about basically what we call human tissue organoids and produced in microgravity in space. And the picture you see here on the screen, by the way, that's a very simple type of equipment. So this is not as sophisticated as space farmers, but it works, that we've used on our 2 missions, which the academic team behind Prometheus has conducted already. Okay, but so what we are actually doing is, so we're coming out of University of Zurich and we're growing organoids. Now, what are organoids? Organoids are, as the name may imply, tiny structures of human organ tissue, right? So it could be, for example, liver tissue or neural tissue from the brain, right? Or bone tissue or fat tissue or cartilage or something else. And basically, we cultivate this and we grow it in space very cleanly in 3 dimensions. I will talk more about the process. And then there are basically, why would you want to do this? What are these organoids good for? Well, there's 2 main use cases we see. One is in biological testing. And the key example from a biological testing point of view is in the drug development process, in what we call preclinical testing. You may know about the drug development process. You have the preclinical phase, and then you have the so-called clinical phase. Clinical phase basically means when you test the drug candidate on actual humans. And then, for example, in the US, that's divided into 3 phases. Before you test it on humans, you know, you want to be sure that there is a certain minimum level of, especially of safety. You test it on other models, on non-human models, and principally these days that would be animal models, right? Like rodents, like mice, rats, but also there's also some other models like very simple type of worms, zebrafish, and then all the way up to non-human primates. So that's biological testing and drug testing. That's one use case for these organoids. The other use case is in what we call regenerative medicine. And this is where, as the name implies, you regenerate a part of a patient's body. And we're talking, again, including organs here. So, for example, you may have to regenerate your liver or part of your liver because you may have a problem of your liver, like a liver disease, like non-alcoholic fatty liver disease or something like that. And our organoids can also be used for that. So those are our 2 main markets. Now, if we talk about the first use case I mentioned, the drug development process, it's really not a very efficient thing right now. So you'll see here some statistics. These are substantially from the US. Of course, it's always the most important market. And 80% of drug candidates fail after entering the human trial phase, right? The clinical trial phase. And that's bad. Why is that bad? Because trialing drugs on humans is really expensive. Like these clinical trials along the 3 phases, they typically cost at least tens of millions, but very often actually hundreds of millions of dollars. And then 80% fail. And so as a consequence of that, if you actually look, okay, what's the average cost of developing a new drug in the US? So previously people have used this number, which we have here in the middle, about $1.4 billion. There are actually more recent studies now which peg this number much, much higher. What's going on here? There's some studies which peg them between $2 to $5 billion. And again, that's so expensive per successful drug because you have to finance all of these failed drugs as well. So anything you can do on the way of testing these drugs where you eliminate failures early on in the process, like in the preclinical phase where our organoids come in, could really bring down these costs, right? Because the idea is you avoid drugs going into the expensive clinical process that shouldn't go in there, right? You cut out false positives, statistically speaking. And then on the right-hand side here is what I already mentioned. The main way the preclinical testing is done these days is on animal models. And there's at least a couple of big disadvantages. I mean, first, animals are not humans. That's pretty obvious, right? So a mouse doesn't translate perfectly into a human. But secondly, it's also the ethical dimension, right? So this is a number just from the US, but just in the US, between pharma and then also some cosmetics, we kill over 100 million animals every year. And that's, you know, ethically concerning. And regulators and governments are also getting concerned about this, and I will talk about that. On the other big use case, the regenerative medicine side, things are also not great. So if we take sort of the ultimate discipline of regenerative medicine, it's basically about replacing entire organs. And again, looking at US data, I mean, this changes every day, but pretty much any day you look, the number of people on the organ waiting list in the US is over 100,000 people. And then because many people don't get them in time, so again, this number bounces around slightly here on the right-hand side, but when we last looked, about 17 people were dying every day on average in the US because they didn't get their organs on time. By the way, even the people who do get a donor organ on time, there's no guarantee it'll work. It may get rejected. Of course, they try to eliminate rejections and run tests, but sometimes it still gets rejected. Or even if the new organ, the donor organ, doesn't get outright rejected, it may not get, let's say, fully accepted to the extent that the recipient needs to be put on immunosuppressant drugs for the rest of their lives. And those drugs can be really expensive. Like, you know, I've had a data point earlier this year that for cardiac transplants, some people need like $30,000 worth of this type of medication every month. So this is obviously also not ideal. And again, we think that our organoids can help both on the drug testing side as well on the regenerative medicine side. And again, some of the reasons why it doesn't work so far is, again, these models, as I said, animals are not humans. There's also another type of cell models which are used in addition to animals, but these are very often two-dimensional cell models. This also has disadvantages. Right, and so our solution, again, is our organoids produced in microgravity. And in microgravity, we see certain advantages, which we cannot replicate on Earth, and that's going to be on the next slide. But we see, for example, that we achieve very uniform quality of organoids. So if you take a batch of organoids, like say a few hundred organoids, like which is a kind of, you know, order of size we produce or have produced, they all look alike. And the scientists among you know this is really important from a reproducibility point of view. We also can grow them because they grow in microgravity, because there is no gravity vector pulling them down. We can grow them very cleanly in 3 dimensions without any support. If you grow organoids on Earth, you, unless they're really, really tiny, and then you can use what's called a hanging drop technique. But otherwise on Earth, you need to put a support structure, what we call a scaffold or a matrix. And that introduces foreign materials into the organoids, which is undesirable. And then we see some other advantages compared to Earth, like, for example, we achieve higher biological differentiation into the final organ tissue. And we don't even know why that is, but we observe it as an advantage. And so again, we cannot reproduce this on Earth. To grow these organoids, we need about at least 2 weeks' time in microgravity. So we can't go to a drop tower or a parabolic flight or something like this. In case you know what it is, we also can't use a clinostat or a random positioning machine because that introduces other undesirable effects like shearing forces. So we have to really go to space. And so what is our process of doing this? So we start with stem cells, and we start with what's called mesenchymal stem cells harvested from the bone marrow of donors. And as I will talk about, our team has flown 2 missions to space already, and we have harvested these stem cells from adult donors, male, female, various age groups. The other potential sources would be, of course, embryonic stem cells. We don't do that. And if you're a little bit deeper into biology, there's also something called induced pluripotent stem cells, which we could use, but we're also not using those for certain reasons. So we start with these mesenchymal stem cells. We harvest them. We go to a lab close to the launch site. At the moment, there's the Space Life Sciences Lab at Kennedy Space Center. The cells start proliferating there. And then at a certain stage, we'll put them on a rocket and we fly to space. How have we been doing this and how will we do this in the foreseeable future? Well, we go on a SpaceX Dragon capsule and fly to the International Space Station. It's like sort of a 2U size box. If you're from space, you know what a U is. A U is 10 by 10 by 10 centimeters. So 2 U's is 20 times 10 by 10 centimeters. And they sit there on the International Space Station basically for a few weeks. And then they go back down to Earth, also at the moment on a SpaceX Dragon capsule. In the future, we hope there's going to be many other alternatives of doing this, so we don't have to go to the ISS, and I'll talk about this. But and so again, this process is out of the University of Zurich, and Airbus was also involved in it. And importantly, this is a proven technology. The team has flown 2 missions to the ISS, CRS 20 and CRS 23. CRS just means commercial resupply missions. Those of you from the space sector know what that is. So this is very literally you resupply the ISS about once a quarter. And the team has grown a total of almost 500 organoids of 5 different tissue types. And you can see here are the pictures, it's probably a little bit small, but the pictures on the right. So this is all liver tissue. And you see on top is a ground control in 2 dimensions. In the middle is the organoids we grew in space. And on the bottom is a textbook reference for liver tissue. And you can see our tissue is much closer, even visually, before we even run any biological tests, to the textbook reference. And so we believe, as I mentioned, this is a much better model than many other biological models out there, like the rodents. And why is now the right time to do this? So, why now? We've been doing experiments in space for a long time. We've actually known about this for a long time as well. And there's actually factors both on the demand as well as on the supply side why now is the right time to produce organoids in space. So on the demand side, I've already mentioned the fact that the alternative here for drug testing is principally animal models and how we're killing over 100 million animals every year in the US. And how governments don't like this anymore. What you see here is very small print, is a law that was passed at the very end of last year in the US. It was passed by Congress, and then President Biden signed it into law, called the FDA Modernization Act. And it basically specifically says that it allows pharma companies to now test drugs not only on animals, but also on alternative models. And our organoids are an example, a key example of such an alternative model. So you have this regulatory push. Very soon, within weeks after this law was passed, you started seeing articles in press, like here is an example from Nature, like mini organs attract big pharma. Roche, one of the biggest Swiss pharma companies that probably many of you know, located not too far from here in Basel, the head of research of Roche was quoted in this Nature article, and Roche is now setting up an entire new institute all about organoids. And we also did our own market research among scientists from pharma companies, other life sciences scientists, and they all expressed basically the desire to have organoids like ours, and their dissatisfaction with currently available alternatives that are produced on Earth. What does our go-to-market look like? We're looking to fly for the first time as a company. So the last 2 missions were as an academic group. As a company, we want to fly to space probably in the 2nd or 3rd quarter next year. And then we are looking to work with pilot customers who would buy our initial batches of organoids we produce and run a lot of tests on them, while we in parallel as a company also run biological tests on them. So you can think of them as beta customers. And the idea here is to really run a lot of tests to produce data that very crisply illustrates the advantages of our organoids over other alternatives. And so once we've done that, we would go to market on a bigger scale. And yeah, this is where it says scale on the right-hand side, and systematically sort of penetrate more and more of the drug development sector. Okay, so it is not only a good time right now from the demand side for organoids, it's also a good time, we believe, from the supply side, right? Because the other factor that you need to make this work is, right, you need to be able to go to space regularly, safely, and also economically. The whole reason, I think the key reason this hasn't happened in the past is this and many other use cases for in-space manufacturing is because space was just too expensive, right? But as you know, the big thing why space is an inflection point right now is that space is getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, thanks to, for example, of what SpaceX is doing with its reusable rockets. And so the cheaper space gets, and in this case, the ability to go to space, but also to come back, the more in-space manufacturing use cases will start making, for the first time in history, economic sense. And that's not just us, that's other use cases as well. Like, for example, there's people working on protein-based drugs produced in space. There's people working on semiconductors produced in space. There's a whole range of very interesting in-space manufacturing use cases that we have known about, that they make sense, scientifically speaking, for many years, but they have never made economic sense. The cheaper space gets, the more of them will start making economic sense. And so specifically what's exciting is that right now to produce our organoids, we have to go to the International Space Station, as I said, but there's something like 24 companies in various stages working on specific platforms for in-space manufacturing. And this can be entire space stations, like the ISS. And there's a whole program that NASA has called CLD, Commercial LEO Destinations, which is basically about finding space stations to replace the ISS when it gets phased out in 2030. But it could also be what we call a free flyer. So like, it could be like a capsule, or even like something like that looks like a satellite, but something that can go up, but can also come back to Earth. And for example, for our use case, and frankly many other use cases, we don't have to go to a space station. Because we don't need like a lot of manipulation. We just take the box up there, and then inside the box our organoids grow. We need no manipulation. We certainly don't need any human like astronaut intervention. And that's good, because astronaut time is still really, really expensive. But we don't even need any robotic manipulation. So for us, we don't need a space station. We're fine to go on like a free flyer, like a capsule, goes up into orbit, stays there for 2 weeks, can come back. And there's a range of companies working on these business models of in-space manufacturing platforms, some of which have received a lot of funding already. Here in Europe, a key example is something called the Exploration Company that some of you may have heard of. It's a German-French company. Had one of the largest fundraising rounds for European space companies ever earlier this year at 40 million euros, so very well financed. Because in my other role, I'm also a space venture capitalist, besides what I'm doing here at Prometheus. I'm actually invested in 4 of these companies, so we have very good existing relationships with these companies. And the last number here is what I put as a round-trip price. So a lot of these companies are targeting something like around $30,000 for 1 kilogram of mass to go up, but also to come back. And if they hit that number, that makes a lot of use cases, including ours, economically viable. Okay, the markets, I won't go into detail, but both of the markets I mentioned, biological testing and regenerative medicine, are in the hundreds of millions of dollars already, and both of them are projected to grow into the billions of dollars, both growing about 20% year over year. We see us as uniquely positioned as we are a company that really has both the space and the biotech expertise. You see some other companies which have more space expertise. I'm being a little bit unfair to space pharma here. They should really be much further on to the right. But historically, the world has very much divided into people who have either space expertise or bio expertise. And what we have seen some examples of, which I don't really believe, is, let's say, companies with an aerospace heritage suddenly trying to say, oh, we want to do the use case as well, right? So like aerospace heritage companies saying like, oh, we want to be a biotech company now, right? Or an aerospace heritage company saying like, we want to be a semiconductor company now. And I don't think that's credible, because it's just too complex. There was the best phrasing I've heard of that recently was, I was speaking, there's a group at Stanford, which they are semiconductor experts, and they're very interested in producing semiconductors in space. And one of the professors there put it like this, like, some like aerospace engineers saying they want to produce the semiconductors is like the same thing as if the construction company that's building the factory for Intel saying like, oh, we're going to do the semiconductors now too. It's just not credible. And so we believe we are at the heart a biotech company. I'm the only person in the company that doesn't have a biology PhD. And that gives us the expertise, and we're quite happy to leave the aerospace side to the aerospace experts. Okay, this is about our financials. Won't go into detail there. This is our team. As I said, the key thing about the team is it's substantially all bio PhDs. In case you know him, one of our advisors who also is connected to ISU is Aaron Kammer, who was sort of the main founder of Made in Space. So of a in-space manufacturing pioneer, brought the first 3D printer on the International Space Station. So he's also very excited about what we're doing. Right, and so we are only 1 year old, but we've achieved a few things already because people seem to believe in our vision. So you may know Orbital Reef is a proposed space station. It's a consortium for a proposed space station out of the US. That is one of these space stations under the program I mentioned, the NASA CLD program. This is led by Blue Origin, by Jeff Bezos, the space company. They ran an innovation prize for people who could use the space station last year. And they got about between 200 and 300 applications worldwide of companies that want to use the space station to do something. And we won the first prize. The company actually wasn't incorporated yet. We won the first prize of that competition and $100,000. We're also part of, you may know that the European Space Agency has the business incubation centers, and we're part of the ESA, it's called ESA Big, Switzerland. We also in the process of receiving another ESA grant in something that's called the Business Space Growth Network, which is all about the commercialization of low Earth orbit. And again, we were chosen there as one of the top companies. Of course, we're setting up an office here at ISU in Strasbourg right now. And we're also part of a very prominent accelerator over in the US and Canada called the Creative Destruction Lab. Right, so products I already talked about. Our main product is these organoids, but it probably won't stop there. Again, we're going to go into specific regenerative medicine therapies as well. And I'm pretty sure ultimately we'll combine our organoid products as well with certain type of AI models that can be used to test drugs. And what we will do there is, I won't go into details, is that we will use our organoid data to train those artificial intelligence models. Okay, timeline, as I mentioned, the next big milestone for us is going to be flying our first commercial mission, second or third quarter next year. And then if all goes well, we'll commercially scale. We're currently raising up to 2 million francs. That's half done. And yeah, so this is Prometheus. I hope I could give you a little bit of an idea of a specific existing use case for in-space manufacturing that is starting to happen right now. And do we have time for questions? Yeah, if you have any questions, please go ahead.
I have a question for you. So when you send organoids in space, is it also more for the regenerative part? Is it an environment like a white room, meaning here in Earth, on Earth? I don't know if you understand. Yeah. Is it compatible with the process here and with the cleaning room, etc., etc.?
Yeah, you have to follow basically FDA-approved procedures, and we would follow those procedures. You're right. So specifically frankly for both use cases, but I mean even more so for the regenerative medicine use case, this is going to be a regulatory process, right? Because you're giving a therapy to a person, right? And then it depends a little bit on, there's two types of, I'm using the FDA in the US because again, that's by far the most important market. There's two types of regulation. One is as a drug and one is as a medical device, and it's not entirely clear in every case which one it is, but you do have to go through a regulatory process. And as part of this regulatory process, you also have to comply in certain manufacturing standards. Yes.
Thanks, Raphael, for this very nice talk. Why not iPSCs? And second question, have you tried retina organoids?
These are good questions. So why not iPSCs? Yeah, so this is where I shamefully come back to the fact that I'm the only non-bio PhD on the team. What I understand from one of the sort of two senior scientists who developed the technology, she seems to be concerned from the literature. She knows that there is a certain carcinogenic risk of using iPSCs. I have not read that literature myself, but that was the main reason for the regenerative medicine side anyway. Having said that, I know there's a lot of people working with iPSCs, especially on the testing side. So, you know, there's a group, for example, that is working a lot with neural organoids out of University of California at San Diego, and they're using iPSCs. Again, for people who are not bioexperts, those are induced pluripotent stem cells. That's a super interesting technology. This is basically where you start with differentiated cells, and you use a variety of what called factors, 4 factors, and you actually make them go back to being stem cells. It's absolutely fascinating technology, maybe 20 years old. It won a Japanese gentleman the Nobel Prize. Sorry, retinas. So retinas, what specifically about retinas? Because the only thing that I'm aware of with retinas is what they're trying to do with the artificial retinas, where they use the protein, the rhodopsin, yeah. So there's a startup in the US, Lambda Vision, right? But this is slightly different, right? So Lambda Vision is basically producing the protein on Earth using standard biotech procedures, right? Like recombinant DNA. And then they're taking that to space, and they're using space not for sort of the reasons we use, which is about growing nicely in 3 dimensions. They're using space because you have the absence of like buoyancy and sedimentation, and you get a much nicer homogeneous mixing of or placement of the protein right on the retina than you can achieve on Earth. So I think that's a super interesting use case. I know Nicole, the founder. I love Lambda Vision. It's also, I think, a key example of space biotech, and I think a use case that is actually about to happen. And Lambda Vision has flown to space already, but it's distinct from what we're doing.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. So I have a couple of questions. One is merely a technical one. So, like, I wanted to know what is the survival rate of the samples after re-entry, because I mean, you have to do something for allowing the samples to get back to Earth. And then I wanted to know if for regenerative medicine, do you think you're actually going to be able to produce the entire organ in microgravity, or do you think that there is a threshold where you need gravity for the organ to properly work? It's a little bit more sci-fi than...
Yeah, I actually should have. I forgot to mention the entire organs, and I really should have. So your first question is, so on the 2 missions we've flown so far, we didn't have any loss, let's say, on the way down. And by the way, as part of that, we also we learned that at least using the crew the Dragon, the G-force profile was totally fine. So all of our this was all in little vials, right? And sort of each one of the 2 missions had like 200 something organoids, right? And every single one survived. In terms of survival afterwards, how long do they stay viable? So I think we stretched it out. There were several batches. We stretched it out up to 2 months, I think. I think maybe even 90 days. Actually, one thing we're currently working on, and also in discussions with some partners for this, is we ideally want to be able to just cryo-preserve them for a much longer time, right? Because, of course, one thing that's happening right now is if a pharma company orders these organoids from us, they kind of have to order it and then, on demand, like when they know they need it, right? Whereas if we had a way to cryo-preserve them that we trust, we could just build an inventory, right? So that's something we're working on. And then the entire organs. So this is obviously the dream, right? That you build an entire organ. So that obviously other stuff comes in. So first of all, our organoids are not vascularized, right? I mean, just as like one is a very obvious thing. But what we believe the way this will happen is the following. So you would, to express it simplistically, you would use our organoids as the ink of a bio 3D printer. And there are some people who are doing really fascinating work on bio 3D printing. I was at a lecture 10 days ago at EPFL, where a lady from Harvard received an honorary doctorate, and she's all doing like advanced 3D printing, and they're printing basically working cardiac tissue, including like of the vascularization. And so it'd be kind of basically, the idea would be partnering up with specialists like that, and at some point in time produce an entire organ. I suspect we start with something like liver. I mean, if you know the physiology, certain organs are more difficult than others, so we're not going to start with a kidney, I probably start with a liver, but that's the dream. The dream being you be able to produce entire organs, and importantly, organs which are personalized for the person who needs them, right? Because we would harvest stem cells from that person, so-called autologous cells, right? We'd use that person's cells to grow the organ, and you would never have any rejection risk because those are the body's own cells.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. I don't know very much about biotech, but I wonder, is there any issues about space condition that can damage the cells, like, I don't know, radiation or other stuff like that?
Yeah, so I mean, we, how can I say this? We certainly want to stay in conditions which would sort of like the conditions that, you know, like humans need to stay in homeostasis on Earth, right? So like, we want to be around 37 degrees centigrade. We want to be sort of like 1 atmosphere of pressure. We want to be like reasonably shielded from radiation. Yeah. So we basically want to have conditions which are normal, except that we want microgravity, if that makes sense. But it's good question.
Well, I think we're done. Thank you, Raphael. Thank you very much. So right now we will have the round table. So just give us a few minutes to have everyone on stage. So I will call Virginia Votring, who's a human performance in space expert at ISU. She is a professor, but she's also a researcher. And so she's the perfect person to be in that round table. We'll also have Raphael, and we will also have Adeline Martin from the MEDES, who will introduce briefly their activities and be a part of this discussion. And of course, Paul Camus will also join from Space Pharma to have this discussion about us in space. And so yeah, I will start everything, and in a few minutes we will start this conversation. Thank you very much. So in the end, I think we will do a small coffee break. So it's easier. We are still. we're still waiting for one person online. Paul is not here yet. So let's have a break outside. There's coffee, water, juice, some cookies, everything you need. And let's be back in 15 minutes so we can have the round table or here. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, no worries. This is, you know, just bonus. Yep.
Interesting.
Adeline will start with a 5-minute presentation on MEDES, and then, yeah, we will start. Everyone, thank you for coming back in the auditorium. We will soon start the roundtable. So just briefly, I would like to introduce you to Adeline Martin, who works for MEDES, which is an institute for the research for health and space, but she will explain it well better than me. She will do so in a little presentation right now to introduce their activities and what they're doing. And then you will be able to have a talk between Raphael that you just heard, Virginia Votring, who's a professor at ISU and doing a lot of research. He will also tell you about it. And Adeline and Paul, who's the CEO of Space Pharma. So Adeline, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly. So I will let you the floor to explain what you're doing, and then we can start this roundtable. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and hello everyone. Sorry I wasn't able to come to Strasbourg, but I can explain to you what MEDES is from Toulouse. So MEDES is the Institute for Space Physiology and Medicine. It was created more than 30 years ago to have an expertise in space physiology and medicine between the French space agency CNES and Toulouse University Hospital. We have 3 missions. The first one is dedicated to space exploration. The second one is clinical research, and the third one is to have project innovations and applications. So to give you some example, for the first space exploration mission, we bring support for spaceflight, for research in microgravity. We have a team supporting CNES, CADMOS, and ESA to design experiments in the field of life science and physiology, and to provide the operational support for scientific experiments when they're on board the ISS in the microgravity condition. We also provide support to the Spaceship Friends program, which is an ESA program. There's 3 spaceships around Europe, and our CNES is coordinating the French one. The goal is to stimulate new cooperation and innovation projects in the field of space exploration and to integrate technological elements for the future lunar and Martian bases. And especially at MEDES, we are working on the health part of these future bases and the future health facility on the Moon and on Mars for the crew health and performance. We also run the Space Clinic, which is a clinical research center where we do clinical trials to simulate the effect of microgravity on the body. So we have different simulation studies, bed rest, where you have to stay in a bed where your head is, where your feet are above your head. So it mimics the fluid shift that happens when you are in microgravity, or the dry immersion simulation where you are kind of floating in a big bathtub, as you can see in the picture on the left. And we also use this facility for medical and industrial terrestrial research. And our last mission is to help the health and space sector to co-innovate and to develop projects. Our common fields of innovation are everything around digital health, connected health, 5P medicine, medical devices, artificial intelligence. But there's also the use of space assets to innovate, either in the environment and health sector with early warning systems for public health, public policies, and also on the biotech and pharma application, as you saw some example before with Raphael and Paul. So our goal is to bridge the gap between the space and health ecosystems, because we are representing both of them. We try to co-innovate for health in space and on Earth, for space exploration and for patients. We help the different structures to develop new business opportunities for space providers in the health sector. With the Life Science Industry Accelerator that I will describe it a bit later, and with the program Connect by CNES, which is a program run by the French Space Agency to help structures, startups, or companies to work with CNES, and also to develop space application for health. So Raphael mentioned it earlier, but MEDES is co-piloting with ESA, the BSGN Life Science Industry Accelerator, which goal is to foster the emergence of new ideas and commercial products using low Earth orbit to resolve terrestrial challenges. So the goal is to identify the market and the potential of using this microgravity condition for the health sector, and to identify projects that could help pave the way for commercialization of terrestrial products using space assets. And Prometheus is one example of the project that we have selected. We ran a call last year where we had 30 applicants, and we kept 11 projects in our portfolio, and the goal is to help mature them, find co-funding, and co-fund them directly to help the project fly and have an in-orbit demonstration or validation or even production. And that was it for a brief description of MEDES, and I can answer any question, and I'm happy to participate to this roundtable.
Thank you very much, Adeline. It was very interesting, and we can't wait to have your point of view also on what we will discuss right now. I don't know if is Paul here. Is it in the Zoom?
Yes.
Or?
Yes.
Perfect. Hi, Paul. So here's Paul Cameron, who's the CEO of Space Pharma, and he's joining us right now. Thank you very much, Paul, for taking the time to come and talk with us right now about the importance of research for the health area and what's all the benefits both for the space industry and on Earth. So first, I would like to ask you all a questions. And what do you think is the most important thing to do right now regarding the health sector, both for the space industry and on Earth? What do you think is the main challenge these days?
Adeline first.
Yeah, is anyone has a? You can just raise your hand. Tell me if you have any ideas on that, or if you want to start a conversation on some of these challenges.
Yeah, I can start. If first, I just apologize for Savage. My colleague had to leave because she had another meeting at the university she couldn't miss. So I replaced for the roundtable. So I hope I will be able to do it as good as her. So yes, your question is very important. We have a priority today, as far as I see it, concerning the health sector, at least as far as I see it myself, is educating really the health sector about what space can bring in terms of disruptive innovation. I think the health sector is mostly unaware of what space can bring. People have old ideas about what space is. They believe it's expensive. They believe it's long to prepare a project and to make a project. They believe it's very complicated, but these things are outdated. Now it's much cheaper, it's much faster, and you can do a disruptive innovation very different from what you can do on Earth, things that you cannot do on Earth. So people from the health sector don't know it, and we have to educate it. That's why we organize this event like you do, Coralie, in ISU, and like there will be another event in March. I think this is, as I see it, is the main challenge.
Thank you very much, Paul. Is anyone else has something to share on that particular question?
So I'll jump in here. I had the same question Friday in a panel that I was in virtually in Houston for the International Space Medicine Summit. And this group of flight surgeons and astronauts and a few researchers, we all had essentially the same answer, and it is autonomy. We're looking ahead to different kinds of space missions that go farther away from Earth. We have to prepare our astronauts to be able to take care of themselves. They have to be able to diagnose themselves and treat themselves completely independently from any advice or resupply from ground. They have to become autonomous, and we have to prepare them to do that. And this is actually a wonderful thing for all of us, because what we need to have for them on a space mission is the same kind of equipment, the same kind of in situ manufacturing capability that we would love to have in every clinic on Earth, in every remote situation here on Earth. It would be so helpful for us being able to deliver better medical care to people on Earth if we could provide them with exactly the same thing. And I think you're working on that.
This is what I was about to say, that it's maybe if you want to start your own company at some point, listen what Virginia is saying, because these are the main challenges these days, and I think it can be really interesting to find solutions and to then continue on these ideas. But I think what Virginia just mentioned, it's also a little bit of what you're doing, Adeline, with the MEDES, and this is some initiatives you take part of, right?
Yeah, I was also going to add that personalized medicine is also, it's a big deal on Earth, but it's also it can also be a big deal for future space exploration, because if you can give the right treatment or the right preventive measure or right countermeasure to the right patient and to the right astronaut, it also helps to optimize everything. So it's also one of the things that we are looking at. Of course, medical autonomy is the top subject when we are trying to explore for the future lunar bases of Martian bases. We need to let them be able to monitor, to do everything by their own. So it's a really it's a hot topic, and in what we see that we are adding a lot of digital tools or artificial intelligence to try to do all of that, and we are also working on this type of subject.
Okay, thank you. So it makes me wondering, is there any technologies right now on Earth that can help with that, or do you have to start from scratch? I would say, can you base your research on something that it's already happening here, or do you have to come up with completely different ideas to reach that autonomous, this autonomy, or what's the research that's based on these days?
So maybe I'll start. So in our case, what we are trying to do is to identify terrestrial technologies that could be applied for space exploration. What we tell startups and companies when we see them is that for us now, space is not a market for health technology. So what we want them to have is to have a technology that can be used on Earth, and maybe with some adjustment, some development, and we can make it work for space. But it has to first have a terrestrial problem and to be an answer to a terrestrial problem, because that's how we think we're going to be able to make it work for space exploration.
Obviously, unsurprisingly, also very mad ahead as a space venture capitalist, I very much agree with this. I think the deep space applications are super interesting. They need to happen, but at the moment, they're sort of like more of the curious and intellectual like end of things, right? You, as a basis, you should have a business that's making money on Earth, and with life sciences, we should be so happy, right? Because the life sciences industry as a customer, that's one of the richest industries on Earth. So if you come up with a product that they like, they certainly have money to spend. And then you could reinvest some of that in R&D, and, you know, sort of like, you know, if I stay with what we're doing in regenerative medicine, like, yeah, if people are in far-flung places and let's say suddenly they need, for whatever, like they burn themselves on something, like they need like a skin graft, you know, it'll be good that we can, you know, grow them like a new skin patch from stem cells. But I think that part, you know, that should be, so where as a venture capitalist, I'm starting to be happy and very excited to fund some of these companies like Prometheus, or also Lambda Vision, which was mentioned with the retinas, because they have a big existing or potential market on Earth. I think the deep space stuff, so to say, for the foreseeable future, that's where we need to look towards like governments and other space, like space agencies and other government entities to fund that. Like in a completely unrelated or sort of related, like, you know, NASA has this deep space food challenge, right? Which is about, okay, how can we feed astronauts in faraway places? And then you see some interesting examples. You know, there's a very interesting company from Israel called, that Paul will know, that's called Aleph Farms. And they're basically, that's also like stem cell technology, just they're growing meat from stem cells. Primarily as a alternative to animal-based meat on Earth, but of course it could be used in deep space to feed astronauts.
Of course. So it can also be something to not like, because you say, yeah, for meat, for example, it would reduce our consumption here on Earth. So it would help also with climate change and all these purposes. So it looks like everything is linked in a sense. Like the space industry can help to develop new technologies, both for all the health on space, but also health of humans, but also our planet. So for that, it's very interesting. And I know you were talking also about the food, and I know Virginia worked also a little bit on that for our students, and you talked also with Prometheus about 3D printing. And I know that this is a big subject also for food and astronauts. So it's a good example that some Earth-based technologies can be combined to research for the space industry and especially health of astronauts. So do you have in mind some new innovation that just came up, or programs that are using some technologies right now to help, like on the moon or on Mars, like Adeline said? What are the big gaps that are filled right now with that kind of technologies? Do you know, or is it something we still need to research on, which is great?
Well, there's a lot of work going on right now with in situ drug production. There are researchers, and this is all in the laboratory demonstration kind of phase right now, but there are researchers doing things like genetically modifying yeast or algae or even plants to produce the active pharmaceutical ingredients that we would usually take in our medications. And this is really interesting for space. And as you mentioned, we really can't afford to do any of this just for space. It's $2 billion to develop a single drug. You can't do that for 6 astronauts. That's not reasonable. But if you could do this for people on Earth and the astronauts also benefit, then you've got something there. So we've demonstrated now, in fact, just recently, there have been papers in the past couple of years of for example, Karen McDonald's work putting an osteoporosis drug into a lettuce plant, which is great, so she can, rather than using chemical synthesis, make an osteoporosis drug by growing this particular plant. Now we have some details to work out. How would you grow that plant in different circumstances? What is the dose? How much salad do you need to eat every day? And is it the same amount for different kinds of people? And how do we measure it? And how do you make sure that your teenage son at home doesn't eat the wrong lettuce when you're not looking? There are some things to work out, but the proof of principle has begun. We're there. And the potential for use of this concept to get more medications made in more places around our planet, not just off it, I think are tremendous. At present, most pharmaceuticals are made in manufacturing plants that are many decades old. The pharmaceutical companies made big investments in infrastructure in the 1960s and 70s. They built a lot of their plants that long ago. And we see occasional drug shortages now on Earth, many of which are associated with halting those plants for regular maintenance, or because something more serious happened at one of those plants. Wouldn't it be smarter to have lots of small manufacturing capabilities spread around the planet better? I think this would work well for people on Earth as well as the ones that are living in space.
I just can't help saying they had to do this with salad, right? They couldn't use like strawberries or something more delicious to like.
I know that in space actually they can grow salad. Maybe they do already, but maybe it's easier than strawberries. I don't know exactly how that works, but.
Well, you have the advantage of you don't have to have a flowering plant breed, so the lettuce grows very nicely from seed, without all that complicated mating that has to happen. Yeah.
Sorry, you will get the lettuce. But all of this new research can be tested in space, and this is actually what Space Pharma is also doing. Paul, I know like Space Pharma is working on all this research in space laboratories, and what's very interesting, it's the challenge of bringing all this simple back. What I was wondering, from all the research and experiment that are flying on Space Pharma, what do you think can be the most promising? Like, what kind of areas are very I would say that I don't know, more likely to be used for the moon or for Mars, because this is happening. We know that there's different programs for the moon right now and for moon bases. So we need to to work on that subject, and I know that your technology is helping on all of this.
Yeah, actually, it's a difficult question because Space Pharma is really interested in working in space for health on Earth, and the life on the Moon and Mars is will be concerning only a few people, but indeed, what we develop more and more is, the main topics is probably drug discovery, and clearly the type of drug discovery which can be interesting for interplanetary flight could be when it is translated into personalized therapies. Like, for instance, if you have some way to identify quite quickly what would be the need of an astronaut, and design something which could be applicable for an astronaut. But what Virginia said before is the hard reality is to design a drug, a new drug. It's awfully expensive, and it takes a long time. So I don't think that our main objective, at least in Space Pharma, as far as we are concerned, our main objective, which is drug discovery, I don't think it's gonna help very much for interplanetary flights, except if and we had some research topic that we discussed actually with Virginia, is how medicine, which is done and created on Earth, how this kind of medicine survives in space, how it's degraded, how long it will stay in space and still be usable for astronauts, and not being degraded by whatever physical phenomenon, including radiation or whatever, which happen in space. So this kind of experiment we have discussed with Virginia, actually, to make some project on that, and this is, of course, could be a real application of the use of drugs in space. But developing a new drug, which is, I think, the major market to the drug discovery for us, it will not be tomorrow immediately applicable for doing it in space, for space. It would be in space for us, as we see it.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul, for your answer. So it makes me think, we were talking a lot about physical health. I mean, drug can also implies a lot of different things, but what about all the psychological aspect? Because health means all parts of the human body. And Adeline, you were actually talking about these experiments, bed experiments, where you're studying the sleeps and also probably how it impacts the life of the astronauts and what kind of consequences it can have. And I know that this is also a topic that Virginia is covering with our students, and is working with psychologists also to understand all these consequences. So I would love to have your point on this.
Yes, I think that the mental health subject and global well-being of astronauts is really coming to in light because of the future deep space missions and longer mission with no return. So far, I won't say it's easy, but life on ISS, it only lasts 6 months. It's kind of they have contact with people on the ground on a regular basis. They can reach everyone they need. They have doctor. They can call. They can discuss with their families, etc. But if we go for longer missions, that's definitely something that especially the spaceship program is working on, because mental health is really a very big issue, because you're going to send healthy patients, but still patient in a very complex environment with colleagues that they might not have chosen, with possibility of not returning, seeing their family not as much, and with a communication delay. So it's really something that is taken into consideration now, and some research are done to have how to help them maintain their global happiness and well-being during this type of 3-year-long missions. And we don't have a solution yet, but we are working on a lot of different techniques and protocols that could help them.
So this is a big area of research for NASA as well. NASA's Human Research Program keeps a rank order list of what the risks to human health in any particular kind of space mission are. And for the missions that will take more than a year and go to a planet with limited communication, if any, no resupply, that kind of scenario, the mental health concerns for that kind of mission have jumped up into the top 3 priority rank. There are a number of teams working on possible solutions, not all of which will be pharmacological. Many of them are going to be taking completely different forms, different activities, different kinds of therapy, and it may be that that machine learning and AI play a role, that we do more with avatars and computer game kinds of things with the astronauts. There are a number of projects funded around those lines. But I think it's easy for any of us to imagine if we were to imagine the last work trip you went on. Some of you are on one now. Imagine the last work trip you went on with a few colleagues. Now, extend it to a period of 3 years and eliminate any contact with anyone else. Well, this is daunting, isn't it? This is not a trivial kind of a problem. And it's kind of unusual. There's a hand in the back? So that's a really interesting point. The question is about the amount of exercise, physical exercise, that the astronauts now perform to stay healthy with respect to their bones and their muscles and their mental health. On exploration kinds of vehicles, we won't have the luxury of enough room in the vehicle to have a bunch of exercise equipment. So the current designs for exercise equipment for an exploration mission are extremely compact. There's a rowing machine kind of a device that's in the works, it's being tested. It can be reconfigured to do some sorts of weightlifting, upper body exercises, extremely compact, and not something that anyone could use for 2 hours every day, just for fear of repetitive stress injury doing the same thing all the time. So the entire approach of relying so heavily on physical exercise is in question now. It would be nice if we could figure out how to add other ways to protect mental health and bone and muscle all at the same time. There are a few medications that might be able to be used, and the anti-resorptive osteoporosis type drugs might be one candidate to help preserve bone health while permitting less exercise. So this is an avenue that's being explored. We don't have a great drug to help preserve muscle mass or strength right now, but there are people working on that for unrelated reasons. It's all on the table. You know, moving to an exploration mission is such a paradigm shift from what we're doing now. I think all options really are being examined.
Okay, at the risk of making myself unpopular, so I think on the psychology part, I mean, people should just be pre-filtered, because otherwise it's just too risky. And second, people should just kind of toughen up a little bit. I mean, okay, do you know how long it took a few hundred years ago to go from Europe to Batavia, like the Dutch colony in today's Indonesia? 8 to 9 months. You were on a boat. You couldn't video call your family every day. People manage that. We're going to manage mass as well.
Thank you. If there's other questions from the audience?
Yeah, I wanted to add, we also we have a bed rest study ongoing where we are trying to see also if partial gravity can help with with all the physical problem that can happen in space. So there are also options to see if it's better, then they'll start considering working on something that could help have partial gravity about the different spacecraft or bases to help them improve. So they're not only medication, but they're exploring all the possibilities right now.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions? Yeah?
Yeah, it's more related to the beginning of your discussion. So related to your sculpting on the technology, let's say for IBD or for, I don't know, for diagnostic or personalized medicine, are you doing your own sculpting for searching and integrating new technologies? Or is it the role of the company to come to you and present the technology, and then you make a selection of the best one? In which directions is it going?
Want to answer for Lisa?
Sorry.
So I don't know if you hear me, Adeline and Paul. Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know if it's a question more for you, Adeline, because you've said that you have some technologies, but are you looking for new technologies and with possibility to integrate them in space? Or are you looking for, meaning doing the sculpting, or are you waiting for the company come to you and present their own technologies?
So it kind of works both ways. We are going to different health conference showcase where we identify technology that could be helpful or that we are interested in. It can also be a company is contacting us directly because they think their technology is interesting, and then we can do a first review, a first exchange, because some technology are really interesting, but if we take the space constraints and all the things, it might not be that interesting for us, but it can be both ways. But we go scouting for technologies, and the French Space Agency, for example, launched a call back in May for the digital twin for astronauts, where they were asking companies and projects to suggest projects to be performed using their technologies to see if it was applicable for space exploration. And they selected 8 projects which they granted a contract to work on this demonstration or first proof of concept to see if it was actually working. So there are also some calls like that we are running sometimes.
Any other questions?
I actually have a very trivial question. Why not use elastics instead of machines in space? In terms of weight and space, this is way more optimized than machines. Have you ever considered that?
So in the early days, they did use resistance bands kinds of exercise devices, but one issue with those is you can't calibrate them for repeated use. And also, we had a greater need for higher resistance than a band can allow. The ARED machine, the advanced resistive exercise device that's been built, can deliver the equivalent of a load of 600 pounds, which is tremendous. And yeah, it goes beyond what an exercise band sort of system could do.
Well, currently the crew is using ARED on station, and that's a resistive exercise.
It is, and it's the device that allows 600 pounds of force. It is vacuum or hydraulic rather than elastic.
Yeah, and that one is configured for each crew member depending on the MEDOPS community decisions.
And it's really cleverly designed to be able to replicate quite a number of different exercises you might do with weights in a gym, which clearly you cannot do in microgravity with the same effect. One issue with it is that it is tremendously large, and it just won't fit on an exploration vehicle. It also requires vibration isolation from the other systems, which essentially increases its size and its weight even more.
That's why the crew is not allowed to move at the same time as someone doing some exercises in Node 2. Yeah.
And you have to think about some experiments that might be vibration sensitive as well.
Yeah, sure. I will come back to the questions concerning drugs. As you said, that's expensive to do on Earth, and I think that since last 20 or 30 years that was sold to the public that we may do drugs on low gravity that could be useful on Earth. My point will be, if now drugs are already expensive on Earth, what will be the critical mass of drugs to be built on microgravity to be really affordable for the public on Earth, if you have an estimate?
Yeah, I think the importance is what kind of active pharmaceutical ingredients you are going to do. If you want to do aspirin, or you are not going to do it in space. I mean, you're going to do it on the ground. But if you have either some components, some ingredients that you cannot do on Earth, or some ingredients which have a very, very high value and you can do better in space and lower the cost, then it's worthwhile. So for instance, there are some drugs which are one dose is 1 milligram or 1 microgram. So if you can produce 1 kilo only, that's already 1 million doses of 1 milligram. And for expensive drugs, it's really worthwhile to go to space when you bring products which have a better quality and when the cost of the space mission has been going down so tremendously. So it has to be high value API, and the dose has to be quite small, so you can produce only a few kilo and do a tremendous amount of dose.
So so I agree with everything Paul is saying, and by the way, remember, I think I mentioned this what Paul has said, that you want something that's as expensive as possible per, let's say, microgram, right? Because that's, so it's profitable to do it, right? The more expensive it is, the better. And that's true for bio stuff, but it's also true for any other materials you want to produce in space. To give you a specific example on the drug side that people have talked a lot about, and there's a bunch of research out there, it's protein-based drugs, right? And this is because protein crystallization is much cleaner in microgravity because you don't have a gravity vector, which can then lead to like a better crystal that's it's better pharmacodynamics than the equivalent crystals on Earth. But again, you want to go for high-value stuff. So if I stay with protein-based drugs, we're never going to produce, well, never, but I don't think we're going to produce insulin in space because, I mean, we can perfectly well do this using recombinant DNA techniques very cheaply on Earth. Monoclonal antibodies, that's a different story.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
And do you think that currently with space stations that will be the size of ISS, or I would say even smaller, because well, the current projects are still smaller than the current ISS, we will be able to do that, or we need to think bigger? As said, for exercises, we already have equipment that is very big inside the modules. For the labs that are currently on ISS, well, they're doing experiment, but they are not done to build the drugs or to produce what is needed. What will be the size that will be needed to be really
Yeah, I see your question. Our factory, our first factory, which should fly in 2025. The basic module of the factory to produce about 1 kilo of material is only 24 euro.
Thank you.
And about 25 kilos. So you don't need very much space. I don't think we need a huge station for that.
It could be, does this work at all? No, okay. Thank you. It could be that return mass opportunities are really the limiting factor rather than the size of the station.
Any other questions from the audience? No? Well, I have one last one to finish. I wanted to ask you all, since we're in a university and there's probably students here, what would be your way to convince the students to work for biology or pharmacology, especially for the space industry? And we'll end up on that.
Yeah, make the non-academic start, okay. The intersection of space and biology is so unexplored. Like literally, it's probably only a few hundred. I probably know most of the people personally. It's probably only a few hundred people in the world. Like maybe it's not many more seats than in this auditorium, right? There's a lot of things which are happening in microgravity where we see them happening. We don't even understand why they're happening. Like there is so many PhDs to be awarded in this. So, and you know, if you want to get a PhD, that should be motivation enough.
See, you were great.
So yeah, I think it's the convincing argument for students who like to go into unknown territories is that this is really the next revolution for space, life science, and it's the next revolution for life science. It's this bioconvergence is extremely motivating should be extremely motivating for students.
So it really is motivating. It's easy to capture people's imagination and their attention when you're talking about doing your experiment in space. I've had this moment before speaking to groups of young scientists on Earth and telling them that, you know, if you get involved in space research, you now have an opportunity to use gravity as a variable in your experiment. Who gets that chance? I mean, it's just amazing. And who wouldn't want to try it if they had the chance? It is really exciting. And not only is it an amazing opportunity and unusual and exciting, but we're also, when we remove gravity from the equation, we can see what's going on with more subtle forces on our bodies, on our physiological systems. We're learning a whole new level of information about how we work. And that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and I love the same. As Paul said, we need to educate the health market because not all of them know. If you are going to work in this company, in these labs, with these people that don't know, and then you can be the first one to introduce them to the space. And we need you to develop this potential market, and because there are so many questions that still need to be answered, some hypotheses that needs to be validated. So we need more and more people involved, and we have more platforms and mini labs coming to help us do that, and we need all the help that we can.
Well, thank you very much for this very inspiring words. I hope everyone liked it. Of course, if you have more questions, you can talk with all the experts afterwards or during networking events. And I would like to thank you, all of you, Raphael, Virginia, Adeline, and Paul, for joining us for this roundtable and for the very interesting information and experience you talked about. So thank you very much.
Okay,
thank you.
And we will continue with the two last presentations, which are about the innovation of the health sector in the Grand Est region, where we are right now, because we thought it would be very interesting to also to stay grounded to our local ecosystem and territory. So I'm very happy to have today two persons from Invest in France and Bio Valley here who will introduce you their activities, their projects, and why the Grand Est region is interesting for the health industry.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank ISU for organizing this this very interesting seminar this afternoon and giving us the opportunity to, talk about this topic and maybe share some information about our region and why this topic is so interesting for us. My name is. Maybe a brief introduction. My name is Patricia Hatteser. I represent Invest in France. We are one of the departments of an agency, a regional agency called Grand Innov, which supports, we are financed by the Regional Council of Eastern France, and we support companies, different types of companies, local companies, in their innovation process. We have an accelerator in-house. We help companies with public tendering. And we also focus on international companies or companies outside of the region who have plans to expand and who are interested in locating in our particular environment. Yes, so my department is Invest in France, as it's called, and so we're a team of multicultural, multilingual people helping, as I said, from A to Z in the process of setting up in this area. Just a few words about Eastern France as a whole for people who may be coming outside of the region or maybe following with a rebroadcast of this seminar. Eastern France is really this eastern section, northeastern section of France, basically with more than 57,000 square kilometers, basically twice the size of Belgium. or the size of Costa Rica, as I saw that recently. I found it interesting. Same population, more or less, as Costa Rica, 5.5 million inhabitants. The main cities are, of course, Strasbourg, but also Metz, Mulhouse, Reims, Strasbourg. The area is quite specific within France because it's a border area. As you know, we're bordering Switzerland, Germany, Luxembourg, and Belgium, which really gives us this, basically it's an interesting setting point for example, for non-European companies that want to enter into Europe, and it's a great springboard to reach these markets, which are important markets in Europe. That's why we are the home of more than 2,500 companies from all over the world in different sectors. The main reason companies come is summarized on this slide. Of course, as I mentioned, this market access, but also access, of course, to talents, qualified workforce. This is really a key issue for companies today, as you know. The fact that we are also quite strong in R&D in different sectors, the international culture, the quality of life, etc. The topic today of life science and space is quite interesting for us, and we were very pleased also to have the opportunity today to host to be part of the press conference that was organized for Prometheus Life Science, that just set up today. Basically, we can say in the incubator. So congratulations again. It's really fantastic, and we wish you lots of luck. It's interesting for us to see this growing niche sector, at this crossing of these two activities, and it's an opportunity also for us to share the information about what's going on in the life science sector in Eastern France. If we take a brief look at that, life science in Eastern France is organized around these 4 priorities, which are biotech, pharma, diagnostics, medical device, and e-health. We are the home on this side of the border to more than 400 companies, and we are also very lucky to have a cluster organization, and this is Manuel will tell us about the cluster organization right after this, Bio Valley. That's it. If we take a brief look at these different subsectors, if we look at the biotech, pharma, and diagnostics sector, what's really interesting to understand about the area is that historically, this area, this Upper Rhine Valley, as we call it, which separates us from Germany and Switzerland, is really the cradle of drug development, of the pharmaceutical industry in Europe, with players like Hoffmann La Roche originally, but then this ecosystem has grown since the 19th century into what we have today. And it's in the 1990s that, aware of this fantastic potential that we had, as the 3 players, the 3 countries around the Rhine River, the idea came to organize people in a cluster called Bio Valley. This is how it all started in the 1990s, and it was a way to interconnect people, but also to promote this area, which was maybe not as known as it should have been, and this has been quite successful since that time. Today, the area it's estimated that 40% of world pharma companies are located in this Upper Rhine trinational area. If we focus on the French side of it, the companies that you see represented here are quite diverse, ranging from large pharmaceutical companies from all over. Novartis, for example, has a large biomanufacturing site. Lilly has a manufacturing site also. There are all sorts of contract research and contract manufacturing organizations which cater to this pharma industry. And of course, we have a very lively pipeline of startups in the incubator that Quest for Health. When we talk about a cluster, of course, a cluster means density of companies, but also research, and last but not least, education. When we talk about research in the life science sector, we can state, the fact that we have 5 Nobel Prize winners in activity today in the University of Strasbourg. And in terms of education, we really cater in the educational system to all the different jobs that exist in the life science sector, going from lab technicians to, of course, very high level research. The fact that we have university hospitals, of course, is quite instrumental also. If we look at the medtech sector, also very vibrant, with a main cluster in Strasbourg, but also another cluster in the Marne area, more focused on implants. Last but not least, the digital e-health sector, which is in full growth. So this is basically a snapshot of what's here. From what the very interesting topic that we have today, I think it will be interesting to see, and of course Manuel will also look into that, how these companies can support the two axes that we talked about, health of, I guess, astronauts in these spaceships, etc., but also how we can help in developing new drugs, maybe in a cheaper way and more efficient way. So looking at all these players today and seeing how we can interact in that sense. Yeah. This I will skip. It's just a few companies that we have helped recently. Of course, the aerospace ecosystem is also quite vibrant. We have ISU, but we also have other players. I won't go too much into that, but we are indeed at this interesting crossroads, and I think it's something that we can continue to really feed and look into and see how we can, use this potential that we have to go even further, I think. I will end right here, and of course I'll be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise I will give the floor to Manuel.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Even if you have any questions coming afterwards, there's a little time where you can ask all your questions and last discussions. So I will maybe let the floor to Manuel and Piovali to explain their activities. Thank you very much, Patricia. I think, we can give her a round of applause. And I'm putting Manuel's presentation right now.
So thank you everybody for staying here for this presentation, and thank you also Coralie and ISU for invitation and letting me opportunity to present you BioValley France. So basically, being here for me is new, and as Paul said in the roundtable before, we have to educate people in health sector to space, and I think I totally agree with him because I discovered Prometheus in September and also this environment. So for me, it's totally new. And all the company we follow needs to understand more what are the opportunities and what are the things to do here with space. And there is lots of crossover possible. So basically, BioValley France is a Eastern France health cluster, and we are here to develop federated animated health sector. Just before, Patricia presented one piece of an important element to invest here in France and to well understand what is the ecosystem. In the next slide, here is all things you can find here, or maybe not exhaustive, but main things you can find in the Eastern region. So it starts from idea and innovation, usually from university. Then it goes, when a company wants to start it, it goes to screening and pre-incubation, where you can find a tech transfer office. The one from Strasbourg is Connectus. And then it goes to incubation. The specialist here for space, is ISU incubator, but for health, it's for health. And then it goes to acceleration with Continent Plus. Thank you. So BioValley France is on the middle of everything because it makes connections with all people here in the region. So that's why we are the trusted third party of health in the region, and we can make interactions between the company and all the institutions, but also BPI France and the region. We have also a cluster of clusters named Enosis. So there is several clusters in health in France. The one of Paris, our cluster here in Eastern France, and also the one of Lyon, and the one of South of France. It helps us to give more visibility and communication to our members internationally, and also at the inverse to give us more visibility. We are also in the BioValley region. We said this several times today. So with Germany, with BioValley Deutschland, and Basel for Switzerland, BioValley Basel, and that's why we are BioValley France. And all of these things make the BioValley region. So just few numbers here. Our ecosystems already raised 300 million in private funds and almost the same amount in public funds. Meaning that in the region and in France, there is lots of opportunity for companies to raise public funds, and which helps them to grow and to build good structures. So we also certify more than 500 R&D projects here in the region. Then we have also international partnership, and we have especially good relation with these 7 countries, Belgium, Switzerland and Germany, as they are our neighbors, but also with Canada, Israel, Japan, and of course US. We here have a world network, meaning from university to big pharma, and also with the patients organizations, hospitals. So we have connections with all these things. Which can be very useful for startups and also for big companies to make scouting and to see which technologies they can bring in the big pharma. So 4 fields of expertise, as Patricia said. So we work with drug and innovative therapies, with diagnosis, medical technology, and e-health. And for Prometheus in the organoids, I don't know exactly where it is, if it is a medical device or if it's pharma. As you said, I think it's not really clear right now. Maybe it's a new field of expertise because it's in the middle of everything. So we have 200 members, and which are companies, and more than 55 partners, meaning the regions, the universities, and all these public organizations. Here are some of our members. So small company, SMEs. Here you can find Diagnostic or Insimo, which might be interesting also to go in space, probably. So that's why I asked before if we can organize something to discuss and to present our company, because I think there is lots of technology which might be integrated in space. There is bigger company like Novalix or Domain Therapeutics, but we have also big pharma like Lilly, of course, here in the region, and also Transgen, just in the other side of the road. And on top right, you can find also the more institutional partner. We have, of course, University of Strasbourg, but also IRCAD and INSERM. Might be also interesting in IRCAD for surgery in space. Here are the things we bring we bring to our members. So we find qualified industrial and scientific partners, meaning that we have small technology. They have some needs to discuss with a big pharma, and we can make the interactions because we have the contact in both companies. We can also find the additional grants. So we help company to identify and then to prepare the dossier to get these public funds. And we can also organize international market exploration by doing some business development, participation to big events for example, bioconvention. That's what I said, major events. So we participate to these major events, but we also organize or co-organize some of them, like BioFit or MedFit. BioFit is just right now, yesterday and today in Marseille. So we can help also to organize and to participate, to let the company participate to these events. Here is the members' benefit. So, of course, the networking is our main and strongest force. We also have a good communication with more than 10,000 followers in LinkedIn. So if you are not a follower, you can become one. We have also good visibility. Business opportunities, of course, as I said, we can make the discussion between two possibilities. We also make some labeling, which gives some support to project and increase the chance of success to grants, more in the region grants. Here is the NextMed campus. We were part of this campus at the origin of this. So it's basically close to the University Hospital in the city center here in Strasbourg. So we are just, just here in the Technopark. And there is 3 buildings. Right now only one. The second one will arrive soon, and the third one in a few years. And we have offices and laboratory, and the idea is here to concentrate all medtech for the city of Strasbourg. We also use new tools, which are the communities. Here it's just an example of the bioproduction and biotherapies communities that we just launched last week with 45 participants. And the idea is not to have a global members community, but to really have some topics, and then they are more able to discuss together and to create projects, interactions, and to have lots of things. I wrote here next one, organ on chip, but it's already a community at BioVallée France, because since 2018 or 19, we are part of the national community. We led this community on organ on chip in France, so it's not only in the region, but on France. We are the leader of organ on chip community in France. So thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask me after.
Thank you very much, Manuel. It was very interesting. And now I think we have an overview of everything we have on the Grand Est region, and also here in Alsace. I think it's pretty rich. We have a lot of different things. And I don't know if some of you have any questions to ask to either Patricia or Manuel, or yes, some last topics you would like to ask or to come up with. Is there anyone? No? Well, on that, I would like to thank you all, especially, I'm going to put everyone's name here. So I would like to thank everyone who came today. Thank you very much for your presence. Also, thank you for all the speakers, everyone who participated in this conference. I would also like to thank all the people who made that event possible. So, of course, all the speakers, but also the staff. So I would like to thank IT, who made all the things possible. Thank you, Nicolas, Joël, and of course, Jade and Dane, who helped a lot on the past weeks to do all of this. Thank you, Nicolas, for coming, because he's pretty busy these days. And thank you, everyone. I hope you liked this event. I was a very first event for the incubator, like the very first conference, I will say, not the first event, but the first conference like this. And we really hope to have some more on different other topics. We are considering maybe one on water, why not? So let's see. It also depends on the startups we have in the incubator, because the events are related to the different topics we have here on site, and also to help the startups to talk about their activities and their projects. So let's see who next. All the next startups coming, and so the next conference we can make about all these very interesting topics. So thank you all, and if you want to enjoy some drinks and talk with each other or the experts, there's everything waiting for you right now in the hall. You've been very patient, thank you. So now you really deserve a drink, I think. Thank you very much.